In this lesson, we're going to talk about using primitive shapes in order to help us get the object that we need. All right, so if you take a look at our object here, and we'll go ahead and just break this down to its most basic shapes. You can see that we kind of have a cube right here. We've got a cube right here, cube right there, and then we have a half of a cylinder right there and right there. All of this object kind of repeats itself, so I think the best way to do this would be to get this bottom profile done, and then we'll extrude it up a few times. So that'll make it nice and easy to get all of these shapes. All right, so to start this out, here is our plane that we're going to start with, and we need to split this up a little bit. So let's go ahead and grab this edge. We'll control right click, edge ring utilities, to edge ring and split. Now let's go ahead and snap that to right there, because again we're getting this outer profile here. And go ahead and grab that edge and hit G, and we'll hold down X again, and we'll move that to that position. So this gives us this split right here. We don't worry about all this up here because all of these smaller ones are going to be from the extrusions. We're just worried about this profile here. All right, so that's good. Now we need to cut in this shape. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and split this again, and we'll snap that right there to that point. So that'll get us to right there, and then we'll add these ones in. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this one goes back 2, 1, 2. So we need one more split right there. All right, now I can go in and I will grab these inside two faces, and I'll just delete those. We don't really need those ones, and we don't need these ones as well. So now we'll go in and we'll get our curve shape on there. We'll go ahead and create a cylinder, and I'm going to bring that up here, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to 2 so it fits in that space perfectly. Now we don't really need all of this information, we just need that portion of it. Alright, so let's take this and let's center the pivot on that. And we can do that by going to Modify, Center Pivot. And we do need to bring that up to there. So that's what we have. Now for this, I'm going to go ahead and just keep the default of 20 on the sections on this. That's going to be fine. A lot of times we have to really watch the geometry that we're putting on there, make sure we don't have too much or too little. But in this case, it's not really going to affect the rest of the model, so we'll be just fine keeping with the default of 20. And with 20, we're not going to get as much volume loss in this area right here. All right, so we will delete half of those faces, and let's grab this object, and I'm going to hold down the X key, and I'm going to bring that back to right there. Now let's take this object and we'll dupe it, and we'll bring it down there. So I just did a Shift D to duplicate that, and there you go. There's our base. Now we need to combine all this information, so let's grab all of these and we'll do a mesh combine. And before we go on, just to kind of check and see what issues we're going to have, we just combine this information. That's all we did. And so these verts aren't going to be merged. We don't really know what our normals look like. We do need another edge running through here that's going to attach to that point so we can have quads in there. So first things first, let's grab this edge, and again we'll split that, and we'll split that one as well. Now let's make sure that all of our verts are actually merged, so let's grab all of these, and we'll go to Edit Mesh. We're going to merge all of those components together. Okay, next I'm going to do a Control A to go to my attribute editor, and I'm going to go to the mesh component display, and I'm going to display the normals for that surface. And you can see that we do indeed have an issue here. All of these faces are pointing straight up, and all of these ones are pointing down. So that's going to cause a problem for us. and we will need to fix those. So let's grab all of those faces, we go to normals, and we reverse them. Now everything is pointing up. And we'll turn display of the normals off, and we can get started. All right, so you can see clearly here we need to extrude up and scale that in to get this ridge, because we do have an angle on here. We need to scale in, back up, and over again. All right, so let's take this object, and I'm going to go ahead and center the pivot on this again. We'll take this, we'll go to Edit Mesh, and we're going to extrude that. Now I'm just going to grab my Move tool, because I don't really care for using that manipulator that it gives you. And I'm going to pull this up. And if you want to, you can come over to this view. Get that on there where it needs to be. Now we need to get this angle on here, and this gets a little bit tricky because we can't simply go in and just scale it at this point, because you can see what it does. It gives us this edge, but it messes this edge up. And so this leads us to a really important part about what this extrusion can do. So I'm going to go into my extrusion node here, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to go to this right here, offset. And I think when I do this, I'm going to go to my top view so you can kind of see what it's doing. And I think for now as well, we're getting this big highlight on here. And so I think I'm going to put just the normal Lambert on there so we can see this a little bit better. All right, so now I need to go to that extrude face node. I'm going to go to offset, and I'm going to type in 0.1. And look what happens. Maybe 0.5. That might be a little bit much. Let's try 0.3. All right, we'll run with that one. But you can see that it scaled everything in along its normal. And so we get an even distribution of geometry all the way through this thing. So this is great. There's no way that we could scale and get this type of information in there. All right, so let's take this and let's grab all of these top faces. Make sure we don't have extras selected there. And let's go ahead and extrude that again. Grab our Move tool. Go ahead and actually what we need to do on this one is we just need to bring it in, don't we? We don't need to move that one. So I'll go to my offset. And let's make sure that that is actually extruded. So now we backed up to the point where we didn't do the extrusion yet. Before I do that though, I'm going to get rid of all of these bottom faces just so we don't have to look at them. All right, now we'll grab all of our top ones here, and we'll go to Edit Mesh, Face, and we'll extrude. So this one, we're going to go ahead and go to our offset, and I'll type that 0.3 in again, just so we can keep everything nice and even. So we'll kind of keep the same values. I'm going to hit the G key to do that again, and I'm going to bring this up, and I think that I will just snap it to that point right there. And then we'll go back to our offset again and do 0.3. So that's a really easy way to get some really great looking geometry. You know, just think of it in terms of its basic shape and go from there. All right, I'm going to clean this up a little bit just because we have some stuff coming off at weird angles on this. So I'm going to grab all of these verts and I'm going to snap them to there. I'm going to grab all of those, we'll snap to there. All of these ones, we can probably straighten those up a little bit. I don't want that middle one. We'll snap those to that point. And finally those ones, we'll go to there. Back here, get those nice and clean as well. All right, so good looking geometry now. Now we need to talk about doing our bevel on this, and I think for this one we can probably just bring a lot of this information straight through, meaning if I grab this edge, I'm going to go ahead and just grab it all the way down, It's not really going to hurt us to add extra in at this point. All right, so we don't need the bottom. We need those ones all the way around there. We need our corners. And that one. And I think that is going to be it. We may want to continue this back through here as well. You know, and again, if we don't select these, we'll just get that butterfly pattern and you'll need to come off at an angle like that. But for this one, we'll go ahead and just leave it like this. All right, edit mesh. We're going to bevel those, and I'll go to my bevel node. We'll do 2 segments, and we'll change the fraction. Actually, I kind of like where it is right there. That's good. And let's hit the 3 key. We've got our extra faces that was created from the bevel. So we'll go in and we'll delete those. And we have a very good looking object. Now, as always, you're going to want to go back in and put a blend on this. And it looks like we do have a couple extra faces here on the corners that we'll delete first. So, really good looking surface. Last thing you might want to do is add a little bit more geometry in these areas because we are getting a lot of movement in this. But that's pretty simple to do. I mean, that's just a matter of grabbing your insert edge loop tool and just adding a few edges just to kind of help that form out a little bit. All right, so in this lesson we covered a couple of different things. One, we covered basically taking an object and breaking it down to its most basic components, like the cube, the cube, the cube. Then we had a cylinder here. We talked about the offset function and being able to utilize that when we extrude objects. See you in the next lesson.